I used a summer sleeping bag, which was rated for extreme temps down to 58 degrees Fahrenheit. And I used a sleeping pad that was rated, I think it had an R value of 3. And that was actually okay. Sleeping bag, not so much. See that lone pine up on that hill over there? What are we actually doing right now? The kids are just wild out there. They're wild. But they're having a good time, you know? They're having a good time. This is Untamed, Unbroken, The Adventurer's Guide, and I'm your host, Blake Bredesen. Welcome to your guide to the wilderness, a 10-part series. This is part 1, Ideation and Planning Your Trip. You got to start with choosing your destination. Select that right destination is the first step in planning a wilderness camping trip or spending any amount of time in the wilderness. And this choice, it's going to set the stage for your entire adventure, your entire trip. It's going to influence gear you're going to need. It's going to let you know what skills you need to hone, what ones you need to get better at, and what skills you're going to need to use, kind of regardless which ones you're good at or need to work on. And it's going to influence those experiences that you're about to encounter. So it starts with researching locations. Now, when it comes to picking a destination, your personal goals are going to play a role. Are you seeking a serene escape and maybe an adventurous challenge? Well, both. You know, your objectives going into this are going to influence that choice. Okay, so start by identifying your goals. Begin by asking yourself what you hope to achieve. Are you looking for, just kind of solitude, some peacefulness, maybe a physical challenge, wildlife viewing, maybe those photogenic hotspots, or a combination? Your goals are going to narrow down your choices. For instance, if you're looking for solitude, probably not a great idea to head to the busy national parks during peak season. All right. Utilize online resources. So using websites like AllTrails, National Park Service, various camping forums can be very helpful. Facebook groups can be very helpful. If you know what area you want to go to, looking that area up and find blog posts, people that are writing about it. Look on YouTube, look for videos of the area that people have camped there during different seasons. Just looking at all of that, look for reviews, trip reports. Just give you a good indication of what that area is like if you've never been there. Focus on the challenges that others faced. Focus on the positive, for sure, but look at their challenges that they faced so that you can kind of prepare yourself for potentially similar challenges. Consult maps and guides. So this is all under the researching locations. Consult maps and guides. Invest some time into doing a map study, looking at guidebooks. I like to use Onyx Backcountry, or what's the other one? Base Map. I have both on my phone. They're apps. You download them. What's nice about them is there's a web version, which is great for the scouting phase of things, but then you can download the maps to have offline. You throw your phone in airplane mode, and then you're good to go. You just have a power bank with you to keep that phone charged, which I always have one with. I throw the phone on airplane mode. I use it for pictures and videos. For maps, I always have a paper map. Know how to use a map and compass. That's, I think, becoming something that's less relied on and less used, and less people know how to do it. But that can be the one way that gets you out of a bad situation. So map and compass. So those paper maps, a lot of times you can just order paper maps. You could pick paper maps up at local, national parks or national forest offices and stuff like that. You can get a lot of maps from places like that. Outfitters will have maps, but you want to look at those things to get an idea for the terrain, the trails, points of interest, where's water, any hazards, cliffs, those elevation profiles. It's going to help you to kind of wrap your head around and understand what to expect once you're on the ground. When you do a really good map study, when you're on the ground, things just kind of click together and you're seeing it your point of view, but your brain is also connecting the dots to the map that you were looking at, that top-down view. And so it's kind of like putting together this really crystal clear image, I guess, for you to just know where you are on the map. It helps out when you don't have to refer to a paper map as often when you're out. You just kind of know. Prevents you from getting lost. Next step is understanding the terrain and the climate. Studying topo maps, essential for understanding the lay of the land. Pay attention to those contour lines. They reveal the steepness of trails, altitude changes. This is all going to be crucial if you're planning any hiking routes, or determining how challenging this trek might be. And there are some good apps out there too that will, if you lay a line, you create a line on the map, it'll show you the elevation changes. It'll even be color coordinated. Green is flat, yellow is kind of up and down, red is super steep, that type of thing. There are some apps out there that do that, which is super nice. And that even gives you an easier visual for when you're trying to understand how that hike is going to go. Research historical weather. You want to look into past weather patterns. This is going to give you a good idea of what you might expect in November in northern Minnesota on a canoe trip. Will you even be able to go on a canoe trip? Depends on the year. Sometimes there's ice. But, NOAA, climate data online, that type of stuff. Another thing to do with understanding terrain and the climate is understanding the local wildlife. Okay, so learning a little bit about plants and wildlife in the area. This is really good if there's going to be bears in the area. In northern Minnesota, and you're out in the wilderness, you're going to have to store your food up in a tree, ideally, right? So some places that's not always a possibility. So having the proper storage containers for your food, just so even little critters don't get into it. You don't want squirrels or chipmunks or pine marten, whatever. You don't want them getting into your food just as much as you don't want a bear getting into your food. Time of year considerations. So seasonal changes, weather impact, whether you're going in the spring, summer, fall, or winter. There can be significant changes between each of those seasons, especially summer to winter. That goes without saying, right? Winter camping in the mountains versus a summer beach camping trip. Okay? Vastly different. Camping in the boundary waters of northern Minnesota in the summer compared to the fall are very different. Spring compared to summer, very different. Spring compared to fall have a lot more similarities. And then in the winter, obviously, you're not canoeing. You're either snowshoeing or just hiking or potentially skiing, or some people even skate. So, while toting a sled behind them full of their gear. So the weather impact, temperatures, seasonal things. If you want a little bit quieter trip, this goes into your goals again, right? I love going to the Badgewaters in October because it's not in the peak season. Peak season is May 1st to September 30th. I'll go that first or second weekend of October. I shouldn't even say all the reasons. It's so awesome. So I'm not gonna. It's amazing. You should try it once. Be ready to be sleeping in temperatures below freezing, though. That might be the worst part about it. Daylight hours. You're going to want to think about this too. So if you're in the winter, 4:30, it's starting to get dark. If you're in the Midwest or up north, okay? At least around where I am. You're closer to the equator. Those hours are a little more even keeled. You don't have the extremes, I don't think, quite as much. Like where if you're way up north, Alaska, it's like you have 30 days where you never see the sun. So there's that. But those shorter days in general in the winter, right? There's less daylight. Just makes it a little tougher as far as travel and setup. You need to be efficient with your time management. Okay? Gear and resource availability. All right, so this goes into the seasons again. Use season-specific gear. Springtime, you're going to want those, warmer gear, warmer boots, warmer base layers, mid layers, mountains. You want to plan for everything. Could be 80 and then 30. So, winter, 4-season tent, good sleeping bag with a good, that lower temp rating, along with if you're sleeping on a sleeping pad, look R value wise, 4, 5, 6. I wouldn't go anything below a 3. If your R value is 1, 2, that's a summer thing, dude. That air is going to get you so cold in those overnights. Believe me, I did. Yeah, the last October trip that I've done, it was 30 degrees at night. I used a summer sleeping bag, which was rated for extreme temps down to 58 degrees Fahrenheit. And I used a sleeping pad that was rated, I think it had an R value of 3. And that was actually okay. Sleeping bag, not so much. I was a little chilly at night, but I did sleep pretty good. I wouldn't do it again. I'd do that down to 45 though, easily. Like low time, low overnights. I would use that summer sleeping bag if it was 45 or warmer. That's personal preference. I like to sleep when it's a little colder. Like I like colder temperatures. That's what I'm saying there. All right, let's move on. So we talked about some season-specific gear, layering, clothing, just making sure you got the right gear for the right temperatures and the right season. Resource availability or resource accessibility. Sorry. Certain trails, campsites are inaccessible during certain times of the year due to snow, flooding, or whatever else. Water sources change vastly from spring to summer to fall. Water levels will change. So if you're doing a canoe trip, spring, early summer, water levels are generally pretty good. Unless you had a really bad snow year of precipitation, a bad early spring where no rain and it's just a dry year for you. But late summer, fall, those water levels are definitely lower. So you need to take that into consideration. And what kind of trip you're going on. If you're just going on a hike, that could mean you're able to do a river crossing versus you're not able to do a river crossing because the water's too high and it's just ripping. All right. Next part here, so far we've covered choosing your destination, researching locations, understanding terrain and climate, time of year considerations, and now we are on to permits and legal requirements. So you need to obtain necessary permits. This is researching whether a permit is even required. Some wilderness areas, especially those popular ones, popular national parks, protected backcountry areas, permits are required for camping or at least staying overnight. That's true of the Boundary Waters canoe area. Overnight paddles, overnight stays require a permit to be reserved in advance. You can do day trips and you just kind of fill out a permit at the entry point, and then you're just there for the day and then back out. A lot of times there's an application process. So, for example, end of January, Wednesday, the last Wednesday of January at 9 a.m. Central Time is when permits become available for the Boundary Waters canoe area every year. It's always the same. So you need to understand that, and just it's first come, first serve for most of this stuff. So just knowing in advance, you have to at least plan, at least for our Boundary Waters, if you want to go into some of those more popular areas, which, talking to outfitters or anyone locally, guides or whatnot, they're going to know some of those popular areas. So you got to plan that in advance. Understanding local regulations, campfire rules, wildlife protection. So there's sometimes, depending on the year, right, how much precipitation an area has gotten, they may prohibit fires altogether, or you can only have a fire if you're cooking, or they're gone completely and you have to have a stove, gas stove, to cook because it's so dry that you can't have any fire. Or they're like, hey, use the designated ring, you're good to go to have fires in there for cooking or just to have a fire. So, wildlife protection, storing your food and your trash is big on this. Bear country, you're going to want to hang that stuff 12 feet high, 4 feet out minimum from the tree. So there you have it. Plan early. Think about all the ideas. Research those ideas. Use software and use apps that help you do this on your phone or your computer. Don't be afraid to join some groups on Facebook or different forums online to get information from people who've been there. Look for blog posts. I like that one. So those are people are there. They're usually ones that they leave pretty good. They leave a lot of details. And so blog posts about certain areas or certain types of trips can be super beneficial. And I think watching videos of somebody's trip on YouTube is a big one. You can learn a lot from just watching somebody go into an area that you're like, I want to go there. Let's watch this person and pick up some little things that they do or don't do, and some of the gear they have with, the time of year that they're going there. Take little mental notes while also being entertained, I guess, right? Planning is number one. That's the most important thing. Plan and familiarize yourself with the area, what you want to do. Look at your goals first and what kind of trip you want to have. You going by yourself? You going with a group? What time of year are you going? All those things. That does it for part 1. Stay tuned for part 2. Thank you for sticking around. If you've enjoyed the show, don't forget to subscribe, leave us a rating and review. Even one word, it helps a ton. Sincerely appreciate you guys. Thank you all, and we'll see you on the next one. Stay wild.
You've been listening to Untamed, Unbroken, a Lone Pine Adventures original podcast.